the process, the journey is where the success is. It's not in the gold medal, in the silver medal, in the bronze medal. Honestly, the best thing about being a distance runner, granted, it's super fun to win. I fully admit that. But the journey is where you really, really get the lifestyle and the life growth and the self-esteem takeaways. It's the journey, not the end. And so anybody can strive to be the best. And even if you don't get there, the journey itself is the success.
That was the man, the myth, the legend, Coach Mike Scannell, today on the Running Effect podcast. He's been a dream guest in the making because I feel like he intersects with a bunch of my worlds, both the high school realm, the kind of like business influencer realm with Marcus and Sean from Minton, New York, and then obviously what most of you guys out there know him for, which is being Grant Fischer, the Olympic medalist, his coach. And he was also Grant's coach back in high school when Grant won national titles. I believe Grant won the Foot Locker Cross Country national title, as well as broke 4 minutes in the mile, which back in the day was even more impressive than it is presently. And yeah, currently he is coaching Grant to the top of the sport and been a big influence behind Grant's recent progression in the sport of track and field. This conversation breaks down the wisdom of high-level training, high-level coaching, and I really tried to get into Coach Mike's mind and all of the things behind it. I hope you guys enjoy this one. If you do, share it with a family member, a friend, a teammate, someone who you think would find value and benefit from it. It's the easiest way in which we can grow this podcast, which is obviously my goal. The other thing you can do is hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode like this one or other ones that you guys have enjoyed. And my final ask is give us a 5-star review. It takes like 5 to 10 seconds to do. Really appreciate it. Without further ado, enjoy the conversation with the one and only man, the myth, the legend, Coach Mike Scannell. Coach Mike Scannell, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
It's a privilege and pleasure to welcome you on. I think people in my inner circle know that you've been a dream guest for quite some time. And we'll give some flowers to the man who kind of connected us to Mr. Sam Gilman, who I got introduced to back when he was in college. And in that conversation, he must have been a junior at the time. Maybe he was just an All-American for the first time. I thought he was special, but I didn't think people gave him his flowers enough. You certainly saw something in him that was special enough to take him on. Take me through that relationship with Sam, because I think a lot of times it can get overshadowed by Grant.
That is true. Things can get overshadowed by somebody with, the stardom that Grant Fischer has. But for me, I coach a variety of guys at all levels, to be truthful. I don't actually interview people to say, hey, will this work or not? Or are you talented? Or are you special or whatever? You bring me motivation and dedication, and I will return a fast athlete. And with Sam, the first thing we got on the phone, we were hooked up via a friend of his, AJ Beach. And, right away it was evident that Sam wanted more, but wasn't getting it wherever he was. And he was hungry. That's it. Sam is hungry. And so we talked for a little bit, and I said, well, I don't know how this is all work because you live in Ohio. I don't like coaching remotely. I do it, but I don't like it. And so I said, give me 90 days. And then we're going to see if this, because my philosophies in coaching are pretty significantly different than what you get other places. So I said, hey, give me 90 days. We'll work together. Quit any day. I don't care at all. I have no ego. If it works for you, great, stay with it. If it doesn't work for you, Sam, just like everybody else, find something that does work for you. And so that's how we started with Sam. And it was quiet. Nobody knew about it for about 90 days. And then Sam, it took about a month before he started really understanding, because it is significantly different, I would say. And by January of that next year, he was convinced that he needed to make a permanent change. And so then he did that.
What are those big core key differences in your coaching system versus others?
Yeah, I get that. I get asked that quite a bit. And coaching is all philosophy based on how far you run, how hard you run, the intensity that you run, and the duration of that intensity. And so for me, to make it very easy for your listeners, I would say that in a very general, not even general, specifically, I run less hard more frequently. So like, let's say a percentage, you go out and do a workout and you run 10 miles. And let's say you're going to run a warm up, some strides, maybe a workout of say mile repeats and then a cool down. You might go 3 times a mile. You might go 8 times 800. I don't know what you do, but you might run 3 miles of aggressive running, and it would be very aggressive, right? 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 on the last one. For me, I run 6 out of 10, but I'll go 6 times a mile, or I will temper down the intensity and I will increase the quantity. And that's a pretty general statement that you can take across all of the training. So not just on hard days, take it on easy days, take it on long days, take it on all of those days. So my guys don't do a whole lot of mileage, but the percentage of miles that they run at a medium intensity is higher than what a normal professional would run, in my opinion.
I forget where I found it. Maybe it was a track all access video, but I, for the first time, heard you say kind of the terminology like 6 out of 10 effort or 8 out of 10 effort. And I loved it because back in high school, and I was never anything, so let's not embarrass me by getting into my times. But I remember the moments where I was most fit, that kind of terminology would play in my head where I was like, rather than running a split, just run this effort. Like you're fit. If you run hard, the split's going to be what you want it to be. Where did you kind of come up with that methodology? And was that hard to instill in some of your athletes who maybe in former training groups or setups or in college, it was very specific, run 59, for these 12,400s or whatever it might be?
The answer to your question, was it hard? And the answer is it's not was hard, it is hard. So it's the ongoing thing, it's every day. So the reason I came up with that is because I coach at a younger level, so I coach high school kids as well. And the high school kids will tell you all the time they're running very easy. They're running very easy. And then they stop in an interval and you say, well, where did you go from easy to I can't run anymore? That 3-second decision is wild to me. So I started coming up with other ways to judge how hard are we running. And instead of saying I'm running to my watch, I want you to run to your body. And so I started asking that question on a regular basis. And really with high schoolers, like with Sam, you can ask him, how hard are you running? And he'll say, 6 or 7 out of 10. And I'll say, great. High school runners, they're clueless. They'll go, they'll say 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever, which is fine. But for me, if they tell me they're running 5 out of 10, they're running plenty hard, honestly. So that's kind of my gearing for high schoolers. Now the pros that know their body a little bit better, they can say I'm running 8 out of 10 and they're pretty accurate. But the high school guys, they go from 5 to 10 in about 7 steps. It's the funniest thing. So that's how I came up with that instead of, there's a scale called RPE, perceived exertion, right? Yeah, it's a RPE scale and they do the same thing. Instead of looking at your heart rate, looking at your data, they ask, what is your perceived exertion rate? And it just has worked for me. So I use it.
I'm sure there are glaring differences and I'm sure there are things that aren't as glaring. What are the differences between that high school team you coach or teams you've coached in the past versus a Grant Fischer or Sam Gilman?
The biggest glaring difference is they're not very strong. So like freshman, sophomore boys, this is general again, until a boy goes through puberty, he doesn't have testosterone. So I really only work on their air at that point. So a freshman boy, he doesn't ever do very many hard things. He never runs hard, honestly. I just work on their lungs. Girls are about 2 years before that. So you can work on their lungs in 7th grade and 8th grade. And, by the time they're freshmen, they're runners already, maybe sophomores, they're runners. Boys, it takes time until they get testosterone, and then you can change the training up a little bit. But the difference is 100% aerobic conditioning for me until boy goes through some kind of maturity phase in puberty. And then maybe you can add a few more things in there. But really, my guys, this year accepted, by the way, my guys never run all out 400s in practice ever. I use this example a lot. When Grant Fischer was in high school, Grant Fischer ran 2 times 400 one day at a fast pace. 2 times. He got there on 2 quarters, and then he raced a mile maybe 8 days later. Then because he ran too fast. So I cut it off right away. He ran one too fast and I said, no. And then he ran a second one too fast and I said, okay, we're done. And then we did it again. And then he ran another mile 8 days later. So in high school, Grant ran 4 times around the track in 4 years at pretty much as fast as he could go. At that time, it was 55, 56. Never, ever, ever did quarters at 60. Never did quarters at 61, 60. He never did that. And my current high school crowd, and I've had, I'd say 75 or 80% of the high school guys that graduate from my program have never run a hard set of quarters in their life. This year, my team was very aggressive and they begged me and I gave up and we did 6 times a quarter one day. That's it. 6 quarters. Their whole high school career, a bunch of them graduated. They ran 6 quarters aggressively in high school. So I just don't do that. Do I run 300s at pace? Do I run 200s at pace? I do all of that. But in my belief, somewhere between 50 to 55 seconds of aggressive, hard running. So you can get away with it for 45 seconds. That's under 50. But around 50 to 55 seconds, the taxation on the body becomes too high. And then, quarters are normally 60 seconds for high school kids. So, at 60 seconds, certainly you're running too hard, in my opinion. And the problem is that you can't do it. The problem is that now you have to take 2 days off or 3 days off to recover from it. So I don't want you to do that. I want to go a little less, and I want you to come back 2 days later or 3 days later and run it again. And so I just don't do that. It's just a coaching philosophy thing. And it seemed to work. I have a kid that ran extremely fast this year, and he never did 1 quarter all year. And he did one of these podcasts, I don't know, it was a month ago. And they asked him, well, do you do the standard, 20 quarters once a week? And he said, I didn't do any quarters this year. And it really doesn't make me laugh until somebody like you asks and says, well, how many quarters did you run? We don't do any.
Do you think presently that high schoolers train too hard? I think this is a discussion a lot of people are having.
I would like to tell you no. A couple things have changed in the training ranks these days. One of the things that hasn't changed, it's been around for 20 years, is that high schoolers have to run extremely fast to even get a phone call from a college. So you have to be very good in high school to get a phone call from a Stanford. That's just the way it goes. And, now with the portal, it makes it even harder to get to a college because you got all these 26-year-olds coming in from all these different countries and taking slots away from a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. So as far as training too hard, it's almost a requirement. If they want to move on to the next phase, they have to train hard. To mitigate the training hard, though, there are track surfaces that are different. There are shoes that are different. And the pounding and the stress level up and down, that's what really damages the body, right? Striking the ground damages the body. And that has been mitigated by the advancements in technology with the shoes.
What would you say are some things, let's say we have a lot of coaches who listen, high school coaches out there, that you don't see most high school coaches implement this 1 or 2 things that they should, that you think would take their athletes or their program to the next level?
What should they implement that they're not currently doing? Well, I don't know what they're not doing. For me, the most important thing has to do with your lung development. So if they're not doing something to develop, specifically to develop lungs, a long run develops your lungs, a tempo run develops your lungs, up to 5K pace intervals develops your lungs. If they're not doing things like that, I believe you're doing a disservice to the phase of life, that you're developing lungs. And the lungs develop very quickly through, 12 to 18 or 12 to 20 or something like that. So, the body moves, changes, and grows in different phases. Your body grows up, then it grows out, then your brain develops, and your brain is, in a high development mode through whatever, 25 or 26, it doesn't matter. But, all these things, the bone structures grow, the heart, the lungs, everything grows at different phases of your life. Lungs are growing at a very strong phase. So let's address that and take advantage of that. So if a college coach or a high school coach was telling me that, they strictly do this kind of work and it addresses muscle strength, and if muscle strength wasn't being recovered. So if you take a freshman who has no testosterone and you just drill him with really aggressive muscle strength, muscle development training, I'm telling you, you're kind of wasting your time. Let's develop something that will absorb the training, and that will not at this phase. Do it later.
I actually think the first time I discovered you was through Marcus's videos, Minted New York, and I just remember being so confused and thinking, how in the world did this guy reach Grant Fisher's high school coach? I've not heard of this man in years. And I feel like your clientele is so wide ranging. You spoke to that at the beginning of this conversation. How do you choose who you coach? And do you pride yourself / how fun is it to coach such wildly different figures in the sport?
That was about 3 questions. Again, I don't really choose. If I have a conversation, I have to be careful with this because 1,000 of your listeners are going to get a hold of me, but I really choose them based on how motivated they are. And I don't know if I choose them based on motivation, but certainly you have to be motivated to train properly and at a pretty intense level. And with Marcus, you're asking me this. It's not the full range. I mean, I have guys that are nowhere near Marcus's capability as well. But with Marcus, I did train a friend of his who got really fast, really fast. And so then, along comes, I asked, I said, do you have anybody to train with? And along comes Sean. And so then I worked with Sean for a little while, and Marcus was like, hey, I want that too. And these guys are football players or whatever, lacrosse players that think that they're runners, but they're not. And so, I have to take that, he's got a pretty strong mindset, by the way, but I have to take that body because he weighs like 195 or something. I have to take that body and figure out what's right for him. And it's like a puzzle to me. So for me, I'm a big puzzle. I got to figure it out. That's the way I coach. I got to figure you out. What are you offering me? What are you bringing to me? How do I figure out the puzzle to make you faster? And with Marcus, that's a puzzle. And he's just, he reads about these guys and he says, oh, I can be that fast. But, it takes time to get fast. And so, yeah, I do coach Marcus. It's been wonderful. He's a great guy. It's been really fun, but he doesn't understand how fast he is compared to the rest of the world, certainly, and compared to how fast he was 4 years ago. I mean, he's sitting around on a couch running 9 minutes a mile or something like that. I mean, he's really, really fast. It's come along very nicely.
How difficult is it coaching someone like Marcus or Sean, who running is such a hobby to them? Minted New York's their full-time job. It's wildly hectic building a business in New York City. How do you navigate that? I'm super curious of coaching 2 people who are really into their business and building the startup.
Well, one aspect that I really encourage with Marcus and Sean is the development of discipline. And you have to have it to run. There's no doubt about it. But you also have to have it to be successful in anything. And so with those guys, I do put them on a schedule, and I don't demand, I ask them to be disciplined with their workload in running so that they can transfer that over to business. And I've even told them that. I said, part of this journey of your running is to learn about what it's going to take to be very good at running. There's no doubt about it, but be very good at everything. And so I challenge those guys, I don't know, every 3 months, every 6 months, to look inside and make sure that they're taking the same drive and determination into their business. Because for me, getting fast is a byproduct of being good almost at everything. And I like to coach. I don't know if I want to call myself a life coach, but there certainly aren't stones unturned that are out there when I coach somebody, no matter what they decide to be good at. I like the process of getting to be, excellent at everything you do. Everything you want to do, be good at it.
Do you find it in your history of coaching that the people who run, whether it's just high school and then they stop competitively running, their outcomes in life outside of the sport are more successful as a result of learning the attributes that running has to teach you that creep into those other aspects of life?
Of course. Running is a high intelligence sport. You can look at any GPA of any college team, any high school team. The smartest kids on campus all do endurance training, endurance sports. Swimming is the same way. Look at the GPAs of the swim team. Endurance feeds the brain. The intelligent brain needs endurance. Just like your body craves sugar, the intelligent brain craves endurance activities. And without the athletes knowing it, they're feeding their brain. They're making their brain more efficient. They're clearing out the cobwebs of their brain. And yeah, I can go through the list of who I've coached, but I actually have a brain surgeon in my history of coaching. So I was going to say it's not brain science, but it is brain science. But my guys are highly successful in their personal professions all over the world. And I take pride in that. I want to drive them to be good doctors. And I don't know how many dentists now, 6 dentists, lawyers, doctors, you name it. I do have a brain science guy, but I don't care if they choose that or not. Whatever they choose tomorrow, because not everyone's going to be a professional runner until, look at my age. I'm not a professional runner. So I want them to be good at what they choose to be good at. And I totally agree with your statement, your assessment, that distance running and or distance training will contribute to the growth in anything you decide to do. Because it's hard. Distance running's hard.
You're a 2:16 marathoner, 29:02 10K guy, 2-time Olympic trials qualifier who raced along some of the best of your era. So you're a stud. I think a lot of people don't realize that. A simple question for you. If you had Coach Mike Scannell back in the day to coach yourself, how much faster do you think you could have been?
I could have been significantly faster. Part of the reason that I'm a good coach today is because I'm a failed runner yesterday. And number one, I have asthma, which, nowadays I know that's a huge detriment to being faster. But skip that because I never really considered that when I was training. But the reality was that I always wanted to be faster. And so I tried this system, and I tried it for a year or two. And then I tried the Australian system. And then I tried the European system. I tried the American system, obviously, in college. So I tried I tried a variety of systems. And what I eventually learned was what I believe is the things that I have incorporated into my system today are pieces and byproducts of all of those systems, or at least a lot of those systems. And so I tried this system and failed, and I changed the system and tried it again and failed. And failure for me, I ran 29 flat a couple times. While back in the day that sounded fast, it isn't today, certainly. But the reality is, if I would have been faster, I wouldn't have tried all the systems I tried to hone in on the system I'm using today.
What would you say is the biggest way in which you've grown as a coach of coaching, we'll say Grant Fischer, from the time he was in high school when he coached high school Grant to present 2025 Grant with a couple of Olympic medals?
What is the biggest change? So the general philosophies are identical. And I spit those out a little while ago, so I'm not going to cover those again. But as you grow and as he gets stronger as an athlete, a couple of different things change. Number one, he's strong enough to tolerate an additional workload in the day. And so Grant's workload, quantity-wise, is higher than it was in high school. There's no doubt about it. Whereas when I do clinics, I always say, gear your workouts to 20 to 24 minutes of aggressive running per day. And don't make it super aggressive that you can't repeat it a couple of days later. So 20 to 24 minutes. That now has expanded for Grant. Now, obviously, he goes 30 minutes almost every single day. He goes up to 30 minutes. It depends what the workout is. But then also he runs 2-a-days. Now, we ran 2-a-days in high school on Tuesdays. We call it Tempo Tuesday. So we'd run a tempo at 5:30 in the morning. We'd come back in the afternoon and do hills. I still do that with my high school guys often. And then as you get older, your body gets stronger and you recover faster. And also you can tolerate a greater workload. So Grant's workload is higher. And to summarize this answer, he's on a 10-day cycle right now. And I like to tell people the 7 days is identical to high school. 7 days is identical. But then he takes 2 more rest days and he does a speed day. Now, I just told you a minute ago, we don't do speed in high school. Well, at the professional level, you have to tap that system. So it's the same 7 days. It's not, that's not exactly true, but in general, it's the same tempo. It's the same hills. It's the same VO2 max. All of that stays the same. And then 2 easy days and a speed day. And that's a 10-day cycle. So if you want to know, the greatest difference is we add a speed day versus we never had a speed day in high school. And we do one of those every 10 days now.
Very simple question, but I'm curious to hear from the architect himself. How good can Grant Fischer be?
Well, I train to win races. So you're asking kind of how good can he be? I'm training Grant to win the gold medal. And last year, the project was to get a medal. And so that is the way we're training Grant. That's the way I train Grant. When we talk about things in workouts, when we talk about sections of workouts, when we talk about closing a workout, it has to do not with getting faster, but winning a race. And so I need to get him fast enough that he can be in the race. That's number one. And he is there now. Now I need to work on the last 1%. So he ran 26:43 or something like that in Paris, which, for us, I can't ride my bike that fast. But for us, you say, oh, that's alarming. That's astounding. That's wonderful. But he could have run faster in that race. If you go back and watch the race, he was very comfortable at 26:40 pace or 27 flat pace. Very, very comfortable. I wish that race would have gone faster. There would have been less people to worry about with 120 to go than there were. So he was already more fit last year. And he took a big step this fall, which yielded 2 world records in February. And he is more fit today than he was a year ago. So I don't know, because we don't do time trials. We don't jump in that type of race very often. He's being trained only to win medals. And while he can run fast, I don't know what his cap is. He hasn't reached it.
For you yourself, you seem like a very reflective person. What do you consider success for yourself individually as a coach?
At the high school level, I consider it a success if the kid wants to run in high school and I get him to college. Or if he wants to run in college, I get him to college. So every single one of my seniors this year at the high school that I'm at, every single senior, every one of them is going to run at the next level. Every one. That's a huge success for me. I had that one other time, but I only had 6. This year I had 9, and every one of them is going to run in college. That's a huge success for me. So for me, when you attain your goals, I'm successful. And so that's how I judge that. And for my high school guys, it was to get to the next level. And so they did. So I feel that process was successful this year. And for you, if you wanted to be the best podcaster, you wanted to have the largest audience, I would feel like I'm successful when I helped you attain that goal.
For you, and I don't want to put you in a pickle here, so you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm personally curious, so I'll ask the question. Do you have a favorite level to coach at? Like when you go to USA's this week, is your heart different in that and watching Grant run USA's than it is watching Marcus and Sean run a marathon versus the state meet for high school cross country?
My favorite level is probably high school. And that's because they change every day. And I've even had this conversation with Grant, if he improves 3 seconds or 5 seconds or 10 seconds in a 10K, we both think, we conquered the world. A high school kid can improve 10 seconds in a day. I mean, it's just so funny. So watching those guys grow, it's really rewarding to see those guys change right in front of your eyes. You have this timid, shy freshman who won't speak to anybody and comes to practice and, is meek and small and shy. And to watch that kid grow into a self-confident senior that's going to run in college, it's a transformation that you can't get anywhere else. So I love high school coaching. So that's the high school part of it. The Marcus and Sean, honestly, I laugh about it all the time. I just shake my head and I go, Marcus, please, because Marcus throws out these numbers and I'm like, Marcus. But you know what? I don't tell him what he can't do. And that guy is on it. And I believe it feeds his business as well. I think it's good for his marketing, and I think it's good for him to have a little change in his focus for the day. And so with Marcus, it's definitely funny, but I always have to remind him, patience, Marcus. This is only one day. This is only 1 year. Patience. And so that's the deal with Marcus. With Grant, we do a lot of the same training over and over again. The intensity and the emotions are so high at that level because there's guys like you that sit around and go, there's only a failure with that, unfortunately. So guys like you sit around and go, wow, it's Grant Fischer. He's going to do this, this, and this today. And the pressure's on to make sure that, number one, he's healthy. Number two, his body is healthy. His mind is healthy. His nutrition's healthy. I mean, he can make no mistakes. So the pressure at that level is enormous. He gets drug tested all the time. I mean, it's just wild. So you have to be careful of every single thing he eats. Every single night he goes to bed at a certain time. He gets up at 7 a.m. every single day because he's got this relegation for being at home and alert at 7 to 8 every day. That's his window, it's called, for drug testing, not unannounced drug testing. So he has to do that every single day. And so with Grant, every moment is planned. Like I can tell you right now, it's 9:20 in the morning. I can tell you what Grant Fischer's doing just based on the clock. And so the pressure is much higher with Grant. Honestly, with that system, I know him so well. I've spent so much time with him. It's almost honestly like seeing one of my own children perform, because that's how long I've known Grant Fischer. And so, there's an emotional component to that as well that, I can't fully describe. But when you get that involved in an individual, Sam is the same way. I'm working with Sam so closely every single day, so closely that I get to know everything about Sam, his motivations, his goals, his motivations, his daily routine, where he spends his time, how he prioritizes activities, and everything. So those three examples that you just threw out are significantly different. I can coach Grant Fischer, spend this much time. I can coach 30 high school kids and spend the exact same amount of time. I mean, it's wild. The contracts, the appearances, the podcasts, all of these things that come up because of Grant's, status that don't come up at the high school level. But I hope I answered that.
Sure. No, totally. Hey, for context for me, I would have loved to have a conversation with you 2-3 years ago before you started coaching Grant again. I didn't have a Sam Gilman to put me in touch with you. So that's the reason for making it happen in 2025. As you share those differences and the kind of the three subsects that you have, do you think that makes your coaching almost new and enjoyable and fun every day, because you're not kind of stuck in the same, you're thinking about Grant 1 second, but then you're thinking about getting a kid to the state meet for the first time. And then you're thinking about what time Marcus is going to run his workout because he's got meetings all day. Does that keep coaching fun for you, having like three different coaching setups?
I thoroughly enjoy it because I'm really into human development. So the answer is yes. The other part of the answer is no, because I spend so much time thinking about being at practice and in the moment. And when I'm at practice, you can walk right up to me and you can hit me with a hammer, and I'm staring at the athletes. I watch every step. I am at practice when I'm at practice, and that's it. You can walk up to me and ask me a question, and I'll say, talk to me in a minute. But the reality of your question is that right now, currently, I have too many things on my plate. And so I'm going to have to take a few of those away, because my number one priority is getting guys in the U.S. team, including Grant and Sam. And I'll be at Worlds, going to Worlds and doing my job there. So right now my plate is a little full. So I don't want to say I enjoy it every minute, but it's hard to tell an athlete that you're too busy. Honestly, they only see me at practice. My high school kids only see me for 2 hours at practice. They know nothing about my 22-hour life that I have outside of practice. And so, out of respect, the way I coach is when I'm in front of them for 2 hours, they get me as a coach for 2 hours, and they don't know anything about the other stuff that I'm having to manage or getting to manage outside of that. So, and even when I was coaching Grant, I had a full-time job. I'm not a coach. I don't know if you know that, but I had a full-time job. I made them come to practice at 5:30 in the morning because I had to be at work at 7. And so, we practiced every single day. And I still coach at 5:15 in the morning with my current group, because I come home, I get something to eat, and I go to work. I work remotely now, by the way, but yes, that's what I do.
Wrapping up this conversation, as I know you have a flight to catch and I have a flight to pack for tomorrow. I'll have to get you on at another point down the road. What would the final takeaway message that you want to leave the audience be? So people have spent the last 40 minutes of their run, of their day, of their doing the dishes with us. What's the final thing you want them thinking as they close out YouTube or Spotify or wherever they're listening?
Well, the final thing that I would encourage people to pull away from this is that all of this training, all of this sport, all of the things that you do in life really help with a very few things. One of those things is your self-esteem and your self-growth and your self-discovery. Don't lose sight of the project. And the project is for you to grow as a person and grow into a career and or grow all the way through your journey. Don't lose sight of the fact that the process, the journey is where the success is. It's not in the gold medal, in the silver medal, in the bronze medal. Honestly, the goal and the best thing about being a distance runner, granted, it's super fun to win. I fully admit that. But the journey is where you really, really get the lifestyle and the life growth and the self-esteem takeaways. It's the journey, not the end. And so anybody can strive to be the best. And even if you don't get there, the journey itself is the success. How about that? That was pretty good, actually, right off the top of my head.
That was pretty damn good. You should write a book or something. Would you write a book? Would you write a book one day when it's all said and done?
Would I write a book? Can somebody write it for me? I don't have any time.
Sure. Anyone listening, you can hit him up, Penguin Random House, send him a 7-figure contract to sign.
Yeah,
real
exactly.
Quick, before I ask my final question, I ask guests, what is important to you in your life that you think most people wouldn't be aware of, whether it's family or cooking or whatever it might be? What are some things about you that you appreciate that you think people would be interested?
Boy, I'm a handyman. I fix everything. So yesterday I fixed my sprinkler system. That is not that interesting. As far as I do everything myself, I'm a big puzzler. So I got to figure out if the toilet doesn't work. I got to figure. It's just the way my brain works. I have to know why. It's just the way it works. The same thing happens with runners. But my greatest accomplishment, honestly, that very few people know about, is that I've got 2 kids that are all stars. And no matter who I coach, no matter how good they get, no matter what happens, honestly, my greatest accomplishment is raising my 2 kids.
And how old are they? And what's it been like being a father?
Oh, you want me to out them?
Yeah,
One of
I
them's
want you to out
28.
them.
One of them's 28. One of them's 30. My son is 30. He decided to be a runner when he was about 24. So I've run a half marathon with him, a marathon with him. He's not fast. I mean, he run 250 something, 252 or something like that. But I mean, he's not fast for a runner. But he decided to be a runner. He's a chemical engineer, went to University of Michigan. It's great. And my daughter was a diver in college. She started her own business a year ago. She's 28 years old. And honestly, you don't get to redo it. You don't get to reset. You don't get to call timeout when you're raising kids. And so I'm very happy that those two kids are so successful. Ryan and Aaron.
Yeah, there you go. Ryan and Aaron, shout out if you're listening. You got a good dad. If they have kids one day, will you stay in the sport long enough to raise a grandkid in the sport, sub 4 miler?
No guarantees. Centrowitz already wants me to coach his kids, and his kid's not even one yet. So no guarantees. No guarantees. Learn the system yourself, and then I'm going to send them to you, Dominic. How about that?
Okay. I love it. I'll train under your tutelage, and then I'll take them on. We'll deck them out in Minted, New York. Grant will have some consulting firm by then. We'll have a whole system in place. Coach, before I let you go, final question I ask every guest on every single podcast. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
What would I make for him? Certainly not a steak. So I pretty much follow a vegetarian diet. I'm a convenient vegetarian. So if you cook me meat, I'll eat it. But I certainly wouldn't be cooking him a steak. So I would go with some kind of pasta dish with vegetables. That's my go-to. So that's what and he would drink a Pepsi with real sugar. So I don't drink high fructose corn syrup. I think it's horrible for the body. So I only drink real sugar drinks and no diet stuff. And that's what I would cook. I'd go pasta, vegetables, and then I'd make him drink a real sugar Pepsi.
I love
How about that,
Coach? Love it.
Is that
you
a
so
good
much.
Advertisement?
This is a good advertisement. If I'm ever where you live, I will force you to cook me dinner, and I will rate you myself and tell you if you're worthy of Gordon next steps. Which, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but Gordon's run 10 marathons. So if he's listening today and you get a coaching inquiry, the only one you can say yes to is Gordon.
Oh boy! All right. Well, I won't guarantee a yes on that one, but I'll heed your advice.
I'd be curious to see how you deal with a screaming athlete, or if his screaming in the kitchen translates to his training. But anyways, all notes aside, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to enlighten me and share tidbits of wisdom from your career and your coaching, and super excited to release this one to the masses. I will see you in Eugene. Safe travels, keep crushing it, and we'll run it back again soon.
Sounds good. Say hello in Eugene. Bye now.